Hi, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Mikeadelic podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mikeadelic, and today we're going to be talking about psychedelic drugs, integration, psilocybin mushrooms, and a lot more tonight at 9. Do you know where your kids are? They might be out in a playground experimenting with psychedelic mushrooms, having profound visual experiences that make them come into their own consciousness and see things from a new perspective. They might be increasing their openness and their emotional availability. Empathy could be increased, compassion and joy can be experienced, lots of humor and laughing, and profundity that connects them with the eternal cosmic wonder of nature and the Gaian mind, the collective intelligence of all beings on the planet Earth. But be careful, because according to people like Michael Pollan, there's not enough research that's been done. I'm sorry, I don't mean to bash Michael Pollan. I like Michael Pollan. I'm a Michael Pollan fan. But hey, people are having experiences every day that change their mind and change the course of their lives. How could we live in a happier and more peaceful society? Well, the little mushroom might have the answer tonight at 9. Find out. All right, that's my improv, non-practice, one-take, blabbering intro to try and spice things up a little bit over here on the podcast. I'm going to try and make this intro as short as possible because I have to go into my new job at a school. Yeah, that's right, folks. Mikeadelic is teaching your children. Yeah, actually, it's pretty amazing. So I'm going to be working at a charter school. I am working at a charter school. And just kind of randomly by coincidence or synchronicity, it came into being, and so I'm going to be teaching kids, 6th graders, how to start their own podcast, and I'm super thrilled about it, because it's like podcast show, all that stuff aside, really it's about finding your voice. I want to know what these kids have to say, what they think. I think all too often in our world we sort of ignore the kids and we just say, oh, whatever, like your kids, like Alan Watts says, we have this tendency to look at children as candidates for humanity and not actual human beings. And that's sad, man. I felt that way when I was a kid, and so in a way I've been attracted to this position to sort of give back a little bit, like Daniel, my guest today on the show, Daniel from Mount Tam Integration and the Psilocybin Summit, is a great person. We had a great conversation, and part of the conversation that we talked about actually was about how integration from profound psychedelic experiences, or any sort of altered state of consciousness that allows you to access maybe traumatic memories or things that have happened to you, because we've all experienced that. And I would argue that we live in a society that just sort of fosters trauma. It's a very trauma-inducing world that we live in, where we all sort of have this collective societal trauma. But what if we didn't? What if we could start at a young age? And so that's always what's been on my mind. I think a lot of the times when I think about changing the world and changing things for the better, really it starts with how we treat children. It starts with how we introduce them to the game that's going on here, and tell them the truth, and give them a voice, and give them the room to explore and to make mistakes, and to have freedom to grow and to blossom into whatever it is that they choose to be. Not this like, hey, you got to get good grades because you got to go to a business school so you can make a lot of money. So you know what I mean? Like this standard narrative. It's like, what do you love? What are you most passionate about? And let's create the conditions that allow for that to unfurl. And I really believe that if we can start augmenting the modalities of beingness in this, in like these sort of opportunities, rather than thrusting things upon or forcing things upon, but allowing for curious exploration, curious thought, wonderment, and experimentation to occur in a free-flowing form. No rush. There's no rush here to be something or do something. It's when children come into this world, they're a new life. They're a new force of energy that has been that has vibrated so much to impact, the ability to, like, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just thinking as I'm talking here, but what I'm saying is it's like, you have this sort of like energetic force that's just like vibrated itself into this material skin bag manifestation to come here and to be housed in this meat sack walking around. And it's like, where did that come from? What is what is that going to be used for? And in my mind, it's like such a tragedy that we just put these kids into these prison camps and tell them what to think and tell them what to do. Stop doing that. Stop doing this and put that down and don't do that. Stop. No more laughing. It's time to focus. Get your grades. Move on. Next thing. It's like shit. Like these kids, they already know. I got to talk to them a couple days ago about some stuff that was going on in the world because they're curious. They want to know. And they come from this just pure, whole sense of fairness and purity. And they're like still uncorrupted by the unnecessary egoic complexity that we have manifested in this fucking insane adult world that we live in. I mean, shit. It's so boring and vanilla and like stressful, and we do it to ourselves. We're doing it to ourselves. There's no fucking reason for it. If we could change the way that we introduce these beings into this existence, into this reality, totally and completely, I mean, shatter the whole fucking thing and start from a completely fresh perspective. Forget about, schools. Forget about something that's called education and career and grade. Like, forget about all that shit. And just look at these beautiful, light-carrying, soulful, energetic beings that are just radiating with curiosity and wonder, and say, what do you want to do? What do you like to do? What do you think? What do you like to think about? And whatever that is, like ushering that into existence. Forget about like, oh, well, the jobs aren't there, and I'm not going to have no son of mine's going to be in theater. He's going to be in business because that's where the money is. That's where the money is because that's where the old game exists. But if we start changing the rules at the foundational level, when these new beings come into existence, we start changing and augmenting the framework that allows it to be open and exploratory, that the demand, when you think back to what you wanted to do when you were a kid, the demand for the hunger for these things to unfold into the world will totally and radically shift the entire hierarchy of values. And, of course, this is a huge thing, right? I mean, it threatens the current status quo. It threatens the current hierarchical, power structure of people who've got skin in the game and who've invested in this, and they're passing things down to their family and the generations, and because they're invested in this particular mode that the machine has been programmed to function in. So it's like, this is the machine, it's programmed to function in this. Kids are born and we just shove them into it, and the ones that don't fit, they just fall out to the sides, and they're going to struggle and have a crazy life, but maybe a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff. But it doesn't need to be that way. Imagine if we were, instead of what we can traditionally think of as schools, it's just like, hey, let's just have some people that are teachers that we respect, and we pay them a good salary, and some parents that want to volunteer here and there, and we come together in a community and talk to the kids and instruct them about what we think is good, how to use your mind and how to think, and just real healthy things necessary things that we never really learned about, and then encouraging them to go for, literally go for your dreams. Like, what do you like to dance? Do you like to make music? Go for that, and just, we'll be here to guide you. And the more people that we encourage, the more kids that if we started doing that, like tomorrow, if this whole system were to change and we were able to just start doing that and encouraging kids to go to their passions more and fully dive in without having to go from first period social studies to second, forget that whole thing. Just what do you want to do? What do you want to make? What do you want to build? What do you want to create? What do you want to collaborate on? What is it that you like? What are you interested in? The more that we encourage kids to do that, the more that those things will actually be created in the world. And then the more that gets created in the world, that changes everything over time. All of a sudden, our entire value structure is changed. It's no longer, you want to get a business degree because that's where the money is. It's like, no, hey, go for dance because there's so many opportunities for dancing and play and fun. I mean, fuck. We're in 2019, soon to be 2020. We've invented all of these methods and modalities and tools and all this stuff to help us construct this world that we've constructed. Now, what are we going to do? We're just going to keep constructing it? We're just going to stay on this path? We're just going to follow these rules, these archaic, obsolete structures that are clearly making everybody depressed and anxiety and heart disease and all this crazy shit? And then, obviously, people that find psychedelics are able to have profound breakthroughs and then integrate those experiences, but integrate into what, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick society, as Krishnamurti says, and it's so yeah, I mean, this ranting intro is just all about trying to really think about how we could really benefit from psychedelics and altered states of consciousness as a mainstream staple in our world, for us now, but also for the future generations, for our kids, for people coming into this world. What kind of world do we want to create and bring them into? They're the next. We're passing the baton on this infinite rally race and it's not a race. This infinite, journey of unfolding subjective consciousness. It's we're creators too, and we're passing it on to creators. What do we want to see? What do we want to change? Do you want gray glass and steel buildings all over the place and just slabs of concrete, or is there something more exciting? Do we really need millions of lawyers and bankers, or could we flip that, and instead the hierarchy sits atop? It's the creative arts and and fun and leisure and excitement, and isn't that what this life is supposed to be about? We're supposed to be building tools to improve the ease of our leisure time and allowing people to actually enjoy the real things that matter. Anyway, man, I could go on this rant all day. And I probably will in a solo cast soon. But anyway, let's talk about this podcast because, this was like me and Daniel talked about this. It was like a little blip in the conversation, but it just got me thinking. And I was like, fuck, I wish I had him on longer, or I wish I had the awareness to just dive into that more. And I'm sure I'll have Daniel back on the show, and we'll talk about these things because I know he's deeply interested in that as well. I mean, he's an amazing guy. He's a yoga and meditation teacher, and he hosts I actually found him on Instagram. Tam Integration is where you can find him. And then we started chatting that way, and I just I was like, wow, this is like a tremendous resource for people, Tam Integration. So you can go to tamintegration.com. And then he's got the Psilocybin Summit that's coming up on September 20th. It's going to be online from the 20th to the 22nd. And it's awesome. Like, it's just pretty much, I mean, we've had Ismail Ali and a bunch of different people Larry Norris, and he's got tons of people giving, panels and talks, and a lot of people that have been on this show before, so past podcast guests, and really bringing awareness to psychedelics and psilocybin and what is possible with these things. And I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you can attend, to attend. And if you click on the link that I have in the show notes, you can get 10% off. Just enter the code Mike. Daniel's a great guy. Mount Tam Integration is doing wonderful things, and the Psilocybin Summit looks super exciting. So if you're interested, take advantage of it. It's going to be really, really cool. And what else? I guess, you know what to do if you like the show and all that stuff. Apple Podcast ratings and reviews are coming in every day. It's amazing. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for doing that. It means the world to me that you do that. So we're at like 185 5-star reviews and 5-star rating. Let's keep it going. It's fucking great. It's beautiful. And if you want to go to patreon.com/Mike Brank, $1, $2, $3, whatever, and it helps fund the show. I'm not going to be promoting the sponsors. I think you guys could tell from last episode, I just didn't give a shit anymore. So I really am honing in on only really sponsors that I really fucking am obsessed with and I love and I really believe in. And hey, I mean, Psilocybin Summit, that's one of them. So I'm down with that. So I'm happy to promote that. And but yeah, just you know where to find me, Mikeadelic _podcast on Instagram. I mean, Google my name, whatever, and tell people about it if you like the show. So that all that jazz. Anyway, that's it. Let's get into this conversation with Daniel from Mount Tam Integration and the Psilocybin Summit. Thanks.
Psychedelics are illegal not because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story window. Psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally laid down models of behavior and information processing. They open to us the possibility that everything we know is wrong.
We don't need new laws that control our consciousness and rigidly place it in a prison.
Cognitive liberty. The fact that as adults, if we're not hurting anybody else, we should have the right to explore the contours of our own consciousness without any mediation or legislation on the part of somebody else.
Reject authority. Authority is a lie.
Or is it perception?
Information is power, but we have to seize the opportunity. The opportunity.
To, my thought, the mission was kind of like to reach for the high thought. And I saw on your website, your mission is to kind of get into the flow.
Yeah.
And so that sounds fantastic to me.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. What, get into the high thought. That's interesting. Is that is there a pun in there somewhere, or is it like getting into the high thought? I'd love to kind of expand on that a little bit. What does
reaching,
that mean?
you know, it was almost like a reaching, right? You're reaching for the high thought. So there's maybe sort of like a metaphor or a climbing metaphor there, that we are often in a place where we're talking about other people, and we're talking about the news, and we're talking about problems, and we're talking about our judgments, and we're not really talking about solutions, and we're not really talking about the things that make our heart sing, and we're not really talking about like our dreams and the things that we're vulnerable around. And so what does it take to get from kind of the ordinary, because I can complain with the best of them, you know, I can dish dirt like nobody's business. I don't always like myself when I'm doing it. So it's like, what are the conversations I can have with people that I'm kind of proud of, and that make me feel like I'm the person I want to be?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, same here. It's sometimes if I'm on Twitter for too long, I'm like, oh my God, I hate myself. But thankfully, I haven't been on Twitter for a long time. There was a period of time where I was just getting too into social media conversations, and they're not conversations. They're just kind of slinging dirt, like you said. Sometimes they can devolve to those. But yes, I am interested in the high conversation as well. So let's talk about it, because that's where life lives, in my opinion, right? It's like that's we're all walking around in all these distractions, but really, what's going on inside? And I guess if we don't really have a clear distinction of what's going on inside, then our outside environment kind of gets a little foul as well, right?
Well, on that, you know, to kind of hit on all of those notes that you just said, can I share about how like somatic awareness has helped me to have fewer arguments on social media?
Yeah, that'd be great. So,
I mean, I'm supposing your listeners have some idea of, you know, when we say somatic, we mean sort of the moment-to-moment bio-emotional, physiological experience, right? And that, you know, a lot of the times that our physical body holds like emotional stuff, and our trauma and our old emotional problems, and, you know, our negative thoughts all kind of get stuck in the body. So we're just going to sort of take that on faith that that's a thing. So one of the things that I noticed is that when I was arguing on social media, that my left shoulder gets really tight. Like it'll lift up, right? And so, and there's all of this tension that goes all the way to, you know, I'm left-handed. And so, you know, if you think about the pen being mightier than the sword, right? It's like if I'm fighting, my left arm gets into this fight or flight kind of thing. And so in my mind, I'm thinking to myself thoughts like, I'm right and they're wrong, and they need to know, and I'm going to change their mind, and I'm going to fix the planet, and I'm going to fix everything that's wrong with the world. And then also at the same time, sort of the more maladaptive thoughts like, I need to be seen as smart and clever, and I need to be seen as the person who wins, and those sorts of things. So my identity is all wrapped up in it, and then my shoulder starts to lift up. And then I'm not often able to catch myself when I'm in a thought loop. You know, sometimes, you know, I meditate, like it happens, I catch myself in a thought loop, but it's real obvious when my shoulder starts to lift up that like, oh, like I'm off. I need to relax. I need to relax my body, and I need to relax my mind, and I need to relax my opinions.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that you've been able to identify that. I feel like we could really, benefit from that. I myself have been doing some ketamine work recently.
Oh, cool.
And applying the somatic based approach to figuring out what's going on, you know, and it's really, I've really connected with it, and it's really helped inform me from looking at how I'm interacting in the world from a, I forget exactly what you said, but more like a body nervous system kind of fight or flight response to these energies that are constricting in my body, and then allowing that to say, hey, brain, what's going on here? You guys want to talk to each other, rather than the other way around, which I think is a lot of what we try and do in our world, is to go top down,
Yeah. And I really like the word, there's a phrase that those somatic people use that's called the felt sense.
Yes.
And so it's like, what's the felt sense of like harmony, right? What's the felt sense of getting along? right? And being in right relationship. And
Yeah.
just, even if I just take a breath and try it on, like, it feels good.
Yeah. It does. It does. And so people, this can benefit a lot of people. And this is what you've been doing, I suppose, for the past 15 years or more, right? I'd love to kind of walk through, if you want, if it's not too boring for you, to kind of give your bio, your history, your story. If you want to share your story, that would be great. Starting from how you began, I guess, teaching meditation and yoga, and then getting into what you're doing now.
Well, I started teaching yoga and meditation because I was practicing it all the time, and I was running the yoga studio. I was the assistant manager of the yoga bookstore. So I was there all the time, and I was talking to people about all these things. I got to sit around and read all of the books and take as many classes as I want, which were nice. And people kept being like, "Well, wait, when is your class?" And I was like, "Oh, I guess I got to start teaching a class." But I ended up at the yoga bookstore because, with the yoga studio, upstairs, because that's all I knew for integration. Like, there was not, in 1999, 2000, there were no integration circles, at least not to my knowledge. There was nobody kind of talking about what to do if you had a heavy experience. And I had a heavy experience. I was using, my recreational use kind of turned spiritual growth at some point.
Psychedelic recreation use.
Yeah, I was a college kid.
Yeah.
But I was also, I was a college kid doing yoga and reading yoga books, and then, like, things started to get deep. It's like you start to get aspirations of enlightenment, for lack of a better word. And so, you have aspirations to grow spiritually. And when you kind of throw, some psychedelics into the mix, it rubs its hands together and laughs and says, "Oh, so you want to grow, huh?"
Yeah.
Oh, you want to be a Buddha? Well, look at all of the things that are getting in the way of that. And that, and spoiler alert, it was a lot.
Right.
And so I wanted to kind of work on those things in a serious way and in, like, a grounded way. And so it didn't seem like, puddles of LSD were going to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like I needed to sort of climb into my body and do yoga practice and kind of, be able to learn, oh, where are you holding tension? What's the root of that tension, right? What's the mental twist or the emotional pain that's causing you to, behave in ways that you're embarrassed about, right? I don't know if you've ever had the experience where you sort of feel like you've been left holding the bag by your emotional state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like you get all upset and then you do something that's a little bit off and you're like, oh, like, what? How did that even happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Too many times for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, the psychedelics sort of kind of revealed that, the really interesting thing about psychedelics is that it revealed that my situation was workable.
Right.
And I think that that's, when I talk to people who are depressed and, anxious, and they're coming and they want to start using psychedelics to maybe break through some of that, the people that they're worried that their situation isn't workable, that there's nothing they can do and that they're stuck like that. And
yeah, they're thinking that way beforehand, right? They're like, oh, I've tried everything and I'm telling you, it's just not going to happen. It's too big. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I saw that my situation was workable, albeit it was going to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
That this was no, this was no small mountain that I had to climb, but that my choices were to either climb it and maybe get somewhere, or to just be stuck in the ridiculous predicament of my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And who wants that?
Right. Yeah. Once you've seen maybe some possibilities, it could be difficult because you could look at it and say, oh my God, look at that mountain. That's scary. That's going to be a challenge. And you could have the instinct to say, you know what, I'm probably just better off retreating back into my cave and, I'll just put on some Netflix and kind of forget about it. But probably not, because it's going to come creeping back, right?
Right.
It's like something that you kind of have to deal with. Like that mountain's there, and you got to figure out a way to get over it in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to say that there is something to be said for Netflix, because nobody can climb 24 hours a day.
True. That's true.
And this is actually, something that I see in spiritual crisis sometimes, is that people get like real urgent. They're like, oh my God, like I've been ignoring this spiritual work that I have to do my entire life, and now I have to get it all done right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that that's going to freak out the people you love.
Right.
You don't want to do that. Is it because, again, what's the felt sense of harmony? What's the felt sense of sustainability? Are we working in a way that's going to be sustainable based on the fact that, we're probably going to be around for 60, 80 years or something like that? It's like we do want to have a nice life.
Yeah.
We want to have a beautiful life, and we don't want to burn ourselves out, and we don't want to exhaust ourselves, and we don't want to make ourselves crazy and neurotic. I can't have sugar ever. Maybe you can't due to health reasons, but if you're just not doing it because it's not spiritual, you're going to make yourself nuts.
Yeah. Right. I see this a lot. I went through this a little bit. I see this a lot. It's this sort of like catch up mentality or purity mentality, of trying to just get the whole thing in one shot and get an A+, and, maybe that's not going to happen, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but probably more informative, enlightening, insightful, and rewarding going through it in the slower way, right? With a little bit more balance, not driving yourself nuts.
Yeah. I mean, it's a marathon.
Right.
Is my experience. I have been, I've been chipping away at that mountain for 20 years. I know people who've been chipping away at the mountain for 40 or 50 years. And, it seems like, being patient and measured wins the race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So what was it for you that you felt was like one of the, if you'd like to share, like one of the big parts of the mountain that came up for you that you were like, oh, I need to really work on this?
Well, there are, and this is a little bit meta, this is a little bit META, not meta, like compassion practice, but just the kind of laziness and unconsciousness, the way, the things that I turn a blind eye to, and these are often things that threaten my identity in some way, right? Because we all know that there's this ego structure that seeks to maintain itself, and that ego structure doesn't like to see itself as fearful or insecure or petty or greedy or things like that. And so, I'm going through life doing these kind of small patterned actions that that degrade the quality of connection with others and the world. Is starting to get like really dreadfully honest with myself. And, this reframing of the bad trip as a difficult experience. And granted, there are kind of bad trips that, I mean, what is your thought on can I break up for a second and ask your opinion on the difference between a difficult experience and a bad trip?
Yeah, sure. Of course. Yeah. I think that a bad trip usually happens when you are not properly respecting the tool in which you're engaging in. If you're in the wrong mindset, in the wrong setting, the wrong environment, someone hands you a bag of mushrooms in Times Square and it's like, hey, let's just eat some mushrooms right now. I mean, you could probably have a really bad trip. I mean, you could call it challenging, but that might be pretty bad. And I think a challenging trip really occurs like you have the right intention, you're respecting the fungus or the tool, the substance that you're using, and and some stuff comes up that is hyper real. I think that a lot of times there's a common misconception in psychedelic spaces, maybe from outsiders, that they think, oh, you're going to see dragons and have a bad trip or whatever. But, you're going to see some things that might be really, really challenging that you haven't really wanted to deal with, or you haven't really been honest with. And that can be scary. But I think ultimately that challenge can be very rewarding if you can make it through on the other side. So that would be sort of my distinction between the two.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I also do want to just kind of honor that some psychologies and some biologies don't work with everything.
Right.
So kind of assume, it's like some people are allergic to peanuts.
Yeah.
Right. It would only make sense that some people are allergic to some of these other medications and that it can create some irritation in some way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, just starting to be, the thing about, the difficult experiences, I will talk to somebody and they were like, oh man, it was really scary. And I said, well, were you in like a scary, dangerous place? And they were like, no, I was at like my friend's beach house, and like, it was gorgeous and there was a sunset, but it was just scary. And I was like, well, were the people you were with scary or dangerous? And you were like, no, they're my best friends and I know they love me. And so it's like, okay, so what you're saying is you have fear. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want to, it's not always conditioned. We're not conditioned to accept unpleasant emotion. We're not conditioned to be acceptance of the fact that like, oh, I have fear for no reason, for no discernible reason. I have fear and anxiety, but it's there. I sometimes feel sad, and there's not like an appropriate reason that I can point to. These emotions, they rise and they fall, and they might have been built up over time through past experience, and then they're coming to resolve themselves. So it's like, how do we admit the fact that we're not perfect, right, in the way that we hold ourselves to be?
Yeah, but we live in the greatest country of all time, the freest, happiest people. We have to be, right? Like that's the message I feel like emits from the social centers and the cultural centers in the Western world. It's like, everything is fine. Don't worry. Like, be happy. If you're not feeling great all the time, you need to feel great. Don't worry about death. We just put you in a box and close you away, and people are sad. It's this really like, bullshit facade on top of it. And then when you have a profound psychedelic experience that could be challenging or scary, or those feelings come up, you're right. These it's like, whoa, what am I supposed to do with this? Where is this coming from? And it's because we don't have those sort of ingrained fundamental cultural reinforcers, or just saying it's okay. This is part of the human experience.
Mm-hmm. And people don't have the tools or the habits is the other thing, is that people might wake up and be like, oh, I got to change my life. But I don't exactly know how. And that's another reason that you get sort of like extreme behaviors. It's like, oh, I have to like move to the jungle to just play guitar all day. And it's like, well, I mean, did you think about maybe just playing guitar like 10 minutes a day? Like, did you try just maybe going to the park or walking in the woods, on the weekends? You know what I mean? Did you try just like eating like a little bit healthier? Right? But like, people don't have like healthy eating skills.
Yeah, right.
It's like the idea of, I was not to out one of my friends / clients. I love you, buddy. But, he's like, well, what if I burn the broccoli while I'm stir frying it? It's like, okay, well then you'll learn and it'll still be good. You're not going to burn it that bad if you don't walk away from it. Just like, screw it up a couple of times, but try new things. But we haven't been it hasn't been part of the training protocol. there's that meme that I saw recently that says, I'm so glad in school I learned square dancing instead of taxes. It comes in handy when square dancing season comes around. Right? And then taxes aren't even, it's like we need to know how to do them, but meta meditation, for example, it's like, why aren't we being taught like how to just generate love and kindness out of our hearts to share with each other? Right? It's like, why aren't we being taught, various forms of like nonviolent communication and conflict resolution?
Yeah.
Instead of just football, let's just smash into each other. That's fun. Not to, also not to denigrate the football players. It's like, I honor the square dancers and the football players, but, let's add conflict resolution.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Prescriptive and preventative and whole and healthy with a foundation of love, care, and compassion. Yeah. I was just talking about this with my girlfriend the other day. We were talking about I don't know, we get into these long conversations sometimes over breakfast, and I'm like, well, yeah, she's a coach and works with plant medicine and does guided hikes and teaches yoga. And so, we're both, and, I'm kind of a little bit more looking at society and stuff, and she's kind of looking more in the individual. So we're like going back and forth, like, well, how do we really change like what we have right now? I'm in Denver. We just decriminalized mushrooms. It's great, but like, okay, what's next? Like, how do we get more of this kind of mindset integrated into these archaic institutions that are really rooted in this way? So that, in my opinion, it's like I had this sort of big awakening moment in 2012. And then after that, I was like exploring on my own and trying to discover on my own. But what if there was like, a mainstream structure that was able to do this at a very young age, so that people aren't having to sort of wake up from the matrix with a baggage full of bullshit, and maybe it's utopian thinking, but I'm down to think utopian,
Well, but it's not unprecedented.
Yeah.
So do you know Robert Thurman?
I don't. No. Sounds familiar though.
He's a Buddhist teacher out of Columbia University. He's like one of the Dalai Lama's best friends.
Oh, cool.
kind of guy. And I got to listen to him talk once, and he was talking about how Tibet for many years was an enlightenment society. Right? Like, it was built into their culture that everybody was trying to get off the wheel. Right? That we were trying to spread wisdom and compassion for all beings everywhere. And, and that was good while it lasted. There's some political things happened, but, it's that there was a society, and it wasn't necessarily without its problems, but it was sort of built into the DNA in a lot of ways. That wisdom and compassion were a thing, that mantra practice was a thing, and it created a certain kind of atmosphere that created a certain kind of psychology, right? Like, somebody was talking to the Dalai Lama one time about the problem with self-hatred that we have in America. And it took him a while to even understand what they were talking about, because it was so foreign to him. It shocked him and just saddened him so greatly, because it didn't occur to him that like a whole country would be running around like hating and self-denigrating and self-deprecating all day.
Yeah.
And also, the other thing, what you're saying is very right. I was reading a book about a shamanic tribe in the Amazon that raises their babies really consciously. And the book wasn't even really about their plant medicine use. It was sort of mentioned briefly in like chapter 4. Yeah. It was really just about like how different people who are, how different these people raise their babies, and how much less antisocial their people are, right? And how much less trauma they have, right? And we sort of overlook the idea that oftentimes we're very traumatized as infants, and not through any kind of like hatred right? Not because somebody was like intentionally terrible to us, but just because we didn't get the kind of loving, nurturing care that we're designed to receive. Right? The human organism is actually designed to receive like enormous amounts of love and care from the people around it. And when you don't get that from a young age, you're not raised in that, it's just the thing you call a personality is just going to be a jumble of maladaptive behaviors that are, trying to get love. And seen.
Yeah. Yeah, being connected, right? I think, I spent some time living in the Amazon rainforest in Peru with the Shipibo tribe, and the way that they live, the way that they engage with each other and the natural environment is amazing. It just you see it and it just feels right. It feels you could feel like sort of an energy there that's whole and pure. And, of course, everyone has their issues and problems, but it seems more aligned with what this human organism wants. This deep need for people to see us, hear us, love us, offer us, some form of compassion, empathy, connection, and community, and sort of, being like interlocked with each other too, having skin in the game. I used to live in New York City. I don't know. I didn't know like half the people in my building and the people around me, and you're walking by millions of people every day on the street. And it's just like, yeah, there's a lot of people here, but how many people are actually really wholly connected?
Right. Well, what's that number? Isn't there, is like Bradford's number or something is the amount of people that a human can actually have real relationships with?
Yeah, Dunbar's number, 150 is like what they say is you can really only handle 150 links. Yeah.
Right. Well, then who's Bradford?
I don't know. Bradford's
Right.
someone. Maybe he's another guy with a number, but I know the Dunbar number. That's
the Dunbar.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah.
And then do you know Brad Shaw? Have you heard of Brad Shaw?
No, I don't know Brad Shaw.
Brad Shaw wrote a really interesting book called Healing the Shame That Binds You.
Wow.
And they say that one of like the deepest, and I've got this, and I don't feel terrible admitting that because probably, 98% of the listeners do too. It's like there's a certain amount of shame that people carry around. A sense of like not being good enough or being broken or being wrong somehow at your core level.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that can come from kind of neglect, and rejection, even as, a baby, because, what a parent might do that they believe is good for a baby might feel like deep neglect and rejection, right? Like being stuck in a crib and left to cry it out. Right? Like a baby is not trying to manipulate you by crying for attention. That's what they're designed to do.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so just kind of imagine if you had no sense of time in any kind of real way, and you were designed to be held, and you were put in a cage in the dark by yourself. Right? It's gonna fuck you up.
Yeah.
And so you might decide that you're unlovable. And so just think about like the amount of people who are walking around with a deep belief that they're unlovable that they picked up before they were even able to speak. Like it's a wordless belief of unlovability, right? It can only be accessed by the body.
Yeah. Yeah. What you're talking about here is so important because I think that there's a lot of people have a tendency to think, well, this is a trauma that happened. My dad yelled at me or my mom hit me. And it's like, yes, that is terrible. That's trauma too. There is also this sort of invisible, nonverbal, energetic separation that causes this sort of thing to form in us at a very young age. I think it's between 0 and 7 years old where you're really getting that sort of nonverbal stuff. Is that right? Like it's kind of coming into your body and you're ingesting it through your sensory input in your body in the somatic way.
Right. So, I mean, sounds about right. I can't verify, 7, 6, 5, 8, but
Yeah.
it sounds about right.
Yeah, I'm using that from Gabor Mate's work. He talks about from like age 0 to 7. So.
Yeah, there's reasonably reliable source.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what you're saying is that it's systemic,
Right.
because it's not like the father in this story. It's not like he was raised with perfect love and acceptance, right? He was also kind of raised in a weird capitalistic society that doesn't actually value humanity, and then was forced to live in it for the rest of his life, right? With probably no meditation practice and no mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this idea of like starting to, kind of reparent ourselves and create, I shudder to use the word tribe, but, communities that are predicated on a certain amount of like care and respect, and the fact that we're sort of raising each other, healing each other, and in a lot of ways putting our wounds and our hearts in the hands of each other. It's kind of really important. It's more than just a meetup.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot deeper than that. Yeah. So we have, this is the world that we are existing in now, and so what you're doing is you've created Mount Tam integration, and where you have integration circles, so that people that are working with psychedelics and not really sure what to make of it, and things are coming up, can come together. There's an intentional community that's created now that you've done, right?
Yeah, and it runs the gamut, because I have people who have been doing. I don't have them. They come. People come who have been doing this work for decades. And people are coming to circles who have, read the Poland book, right, and are just curious.
Yeah,
and
that's fun. I see that a lot too. It's interesting. I can't believe how I see how big that book has been and how much of an impact it's been here in Denver with the Psychedelic Club meets every Monday night. There's always, it's such an interesting, diverse range of people, and people that I guess one outside looking in might not think would be at a Psychedelic Club meeting, but they're there because they read Michael Pollan's book and they're curious. It's amazing.
Right. Yeah, it's really amazing and really interesting, and we have a circle, and we share intentionally. We give non-directive, non-judgmental feedback to each other, and then sometimes, even more important than that is, we go to the diner afterwards. It's like some of the best, and this is, it's not rocket science, but it's a trick that I picked up from some of my meditation groups. That some of the best meditation groups that I've been to, it's not just meditate and go home. It's meditate and then there's a potluck. Or it's meditate and then we all go out for coffee. Mm-hmm. And so there is this, sense of community. The practice is important, but, the practice, we can't exist in a vacuum. And it's just simply more delightful to have people on the path with you, regardless of what path it happens to be. And I think that it's very important to not dismiss the role of delight in the process of our healing. Right? There are some very renunciate paths out there. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were taught meditation by people who were taught meditation by people who are taught meditation by ascetic monks. People who would just like spend time in a cave or in a monastery. Then they didn't really have any friends. They didn't have any family. They didn't have any responsibilities. And they just meditated as their day job. And it was very, very strict tradition. There are other traditions that put an emphasis on joy and happiness and delight, and allowing the objects of the senses to bring you into a state of fullness, right? Like a good piece of chocolate cake, might do it for me. A sunset might do it for you, right? But these things are doorways into joy, and joy heals deeply. Right, we know that from our psychedelic experiences. It's not all just like trawling around. It's been a very maudlin podcast so far. It's been all like, oh, my trauma, oh, my problems. But we all also know that just basking in the sunlight of the spirit has amazing healing power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure does. And I think it's like you're drawing upon this again, like you mentioned before, about sort of the rigidity or the seriousness of one who's like, oh, I got all this stuff and I want to get it done now. I want to be healed. I want to be at the top of the mountain. I want to say, I'm here, and maybe is that influenced, you think, by like our culture, like the way that our culture wants everything to kind of get done, hustle and grind, get to that thing, get to the finish line, get to the end, achieve.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to be, it's definitely seems to be there's the old question of product versus process.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then also what does the process look for? And as we know that, we don't necessarily have a healthcare system, we have a sickness care system. We're really interested in pathologizing each other. We're really into looking at what's broken and what's wrong. And we're not necessarily celebrating what is whole and pure and holy and good. And so people get stuck in loops of like, oh, I've got, it's maybe, I think the word Protestant work ethic comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, oh, I just got to like grind a little bit more, and it's also very much in Judeo-Christian religion, a lot of like, just a little bit more penance, and there's not necessarily, too much time for joy. Unless it's, unless there's just a lot of alcohol dumped on it, right. It's like our holy events, our sacred festivals, are bacchanals. And of course, we're starting to see that change, we're trying to change it. There's transformational festivals where, people are still getting plenty high, but, it's some hope, there's a increasing amount of consciousness to the substance use with increasing amounts of intention. I'm sure they're still selling plenty of beer again at the football games and the July 4th day parades.
Yeah, it was interesting. My friend, I didn't go to Burning Man this year. Did you?
No, I every year I have to work really hard to come up with an excuse why I'm not going.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, my friend went, and I kind of was like, so, like, what do you, to give me the lowdown? And he was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of a little disappointed. I was like, really interesting, because I thought that I haven't been, and I was thinking like, man, this is going to be like the pinnacle of like human progress and thought and achievement and art. And he was like, yeah, I was actually also surprised there was a lot of like bars selling alcohol, and and I kind of just didn't really think of that. I thought, okay, well, I thought maybe this would be something different. But anyway, my point is just getting to sort of things that we can create that can be really whole, healing, and in a foundational structure of love that offers a way for people to really discover and unfurl these things that are going on inside of them, so that then we can come into community. And I'm guessing that's sort of, based on what you've been doing with your mindfulness coaching and with the integration now, the Psilocybin Summit, it seems like you're kind of putting forth this help, for people that can really be fully connected. Like you said, looking at a sunset, having a piece of chocolate cake, having a profound psychedelic experience, and then where does that all go, and how does that play out? Right.
Yeah. And also, I'm not telling people, there are people, I know real responsible drinkers, I know people who brew their own beer, and I know people who make mead, and they savor it with the same sort of consciousness that you could savor anything.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily anti any particular thing.
Right.
There's a really interesting quote in a text called the Yoga Spanda Karika. Spanda means sacred pulsation. So it's like the throb of life, the creative tremor, It's like the primordial orgasm, perhaps. But one of the lines in there that says the same phenomenon that enslaves the foolish can liberate the wise.
Wow. Wow.
Right? So it's like, it's not weed's fault if you're an addict and you use it irresponsibly. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not even weed's benefit if you use it to get enlightened.
Yeah. Right?
And so it's like, the question is, how do we cultivate insight and wisdom? And so some of that is, by doing practice that does that, and some of that is by healing, the things that are troubling us. And I really like to think of like an integration circle as sort of really riding the line between, a meditation community and a support group.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of a little bit of both.
Yeah.
People kind of need a little bit of both, often both at the same time.
Right. Yeah, it's an amazing combination that you have, because with, mindfulness and meditation and yoga and psychedelics, I think to me, it just seems like such a natural fit. Sometimes you don't see those, those going together. Sometimes it's strictly just, like science and psychedelics, and then all that other stuff is left out. So I think that it's a nice fit together that really gives like a good construction of the whole. So I'm wondering, like with the integration circle, the people that you've seen and the coaching and all the stuff that you've done, is there a common sort of theme of like, hey, I want to engage in this, and then they show up, and then it's like, this is what's going on, and then okay, so now kind of do this. Is there any way that you could like maybe walk me through like a way that someone would get involved, and how and what kind of things would be coming up from them? Is there like a common trope or something?
I am not at all sure how to answer that. I think you asked like 6 questions, and I maybe understood part of one.
Okay, sure. Let me see if I can clarify it. So, so the integration circle, I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying to understand if there's a common link between what people are engaging in when they come to an integration circle and what comes up for them, and then what they then do afterwards. Sort of like a comprehensive overview of the process, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, people come in and they share their experiences, and sometimes the experiences were fantastic. I had one guy come to Integration Circle. He had done 5 MEO, and he said something to the effect of, I thought I knew what it was going to be like, and I was so wrong in the best possible way. And so, there's insights and there's visions, and there are things like that. And sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. And, sometimes people share reading with them, and sometimes people share meditation tips with each other. And sometimes people just need to get stuff off their chest. I've had people come and tell 30-year-old stories, like old dudes that like didn't get a chance to talk, that had nobody to talk about something that happened to them in the 80s, and are like choked up. But and these things are popping up more and more all over the country.
Yeah.
It was cool. I think it was maybe the Nashville Psychedelic Society was like, hey, can I talk to you about how to have an integration circle? Yes. I think I should probably make an online course at some point. But yeah, these things are popping up all over the place. It's like hard to do them wrong. I mean, maybe it's not, I don't know. It's like you got to kind of be nice to people and give them a lot of space, and understand that you are holding a circle for a bunch of trippers.
Right.
It's like the the amount of control you can have. It's not a board meeting.
Right.
It's going to take on a life of its own, and you kind of have to enjoy that wave, which is kind of fun.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and that answers my question really, because I was thinking like, okay, is there like a particular sort of model? But no, it just seems like, hey, it's pretty simple: showing up with compassion, kindness, empathy, holding space, allowing for whatever to unfold, and then you work together as a group. Some people offer this, some people offer that, and it's really just about building that community. Just saying, hey, I'm here. I had this experience. You had a different one. Let's talk about it, right? So that looks it's different in every form.
Yeah, I mean, the ground rules are pretty simple, and then one of them is this is anonymous, right? This is anonymous and confidential. We're not going to out anybody. We're not going to tell anybody's stories.
Right.
The other thing is what I ask is that there's maybe 7 minutes to tell your story, 3 minutes for feedback. One of the things that I ask for feedback is try not to use you statements, right? Like non-advisory. It'd be much different to be like, Mike, after hearing what you said, like, I'm just, I read Francois Bourzat's Consciousness Medicine book, and, it was really helpful for me. That's much different than me saying, Mike, you need to read more.
Mm. Yeah.
Also just like, saying things like, I see you're going through a really intense thing right now. And, I just want you to know I got a lot of faith in you. Right. So these are I statements, not you statements.
Yeah.
Also, I do encourage people that they don't have to share on, they don't have to give feedback to everybody. It's like sort of step forward, step back. If you know that you're a big talker, chill out a little. If you're a little bit shy, try and open your mouth a little bit more, because we do want to hear we want to hear from a diversity of perspectives.
Yeah. Very important, for sure. Yeah, hearing that diversity of perspectives really, really does help, and allowing for that, because I think a lot of times, we live our lives in these meat suits, looking through these eyes, and think, oh, we're the only ones, or no one can understand. But here's somebody else that's going through something. It could help inform you in a way that you never thought was possible, right?
Yeah, man. Like the psychedelic experience is like one of those like treasure map movies where like everybody has like one piece of the treasure map and they got to fit it all together.
Yeah. Piece of the puzzle. Like hey, let's create this puzzle here. And, does that piece fit there? Does that piece fit there? Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned like maybe you'll start an online course about that, but you have an online. Maybe I don't know if it's a course, but I would call it's the Psilocybin Summit, which is
an online thing.
It's an online thing. Yes, it's really cool. So you could be anywhere in the world and join this, and I'll put the links in the show notes. And so for people,
you get 10% off with the coupon code Mike.
Excellent, 10% off. That sounds amazing.
So it's basically 4 days of kind of the most interesting, far out psilocybin wisdom keepers that I could get my hands on.
Nice.
And so we'll be talking about policy, and there'll be some research, and I'll be talking more about meditation, and there will be a lot of stuff on the Mazatec, the kind of the traditional Mexican communities that have been using mushrooms for a long time. And things of that nature. There's a cultivation workshop that we're actually doing live in the city that will be streamed, and we just built a forum. I just built a forum that I've got to import everybody in today, because I want people to be able to like communicate in real time, and have do more. It's one thing to create a forum. This summit, this conference, people are going to be able to kind of ask questions in the side of the Zoom. But if we're really building community, we got to give people a community. And so, we take that seriously, and have been kicking our own asses trying to get this forum up, and it will hopefully even grow over time. Once there's an integration training course, how to have an integration training course, that'll have a channel on the forum.
Cool.
And things like that. But I'm super excited about it. I'm going to just pull up the schedule, and it's September 19th to the 22nd.
Excellent.
So it's coming up pretty soon.
And so it's going to be live, or you're going to have these different courses or speakers go live, or are they pre-recorded, or how does that?
It's all live.
Cool.
So people will be able to kind of raise their hand, because we're running it through Zoom, because Zoom works.
Yeah.
So people will be able to chat live and things like that, and then it will be up. So people who buy the all access, it's a little bit less expensive if you pay for just the live version. Thursday's free, right? Everybody can just come for Thursday. And there's forever access as well.
Awesome. So yeah, so you can access it for as long as you want, as long as the internet remains in existence.
Yeah. Or just, everybody just seems bored with it. Maybe I'll shut it down, but hopefully that won't happen. One of the things that I've been scrolling through the schedule, we are having a test pilot roundtable. So you know about the Baltimore Psychedelic Society?
No.
Well, the thing about it is that a lot of it are people who went through Johns Hopkins studies.
Oh, okay.
So they were like, the whole group is like heavily infiltrated by the guinea pigs of all of those studies, for like addiction and cigarette smoking and depression and mystical experience. They were doing all these different studies. And if you go online, there are a lot of videos of those researchers, right? It's not hard to find researchers talking about what it's like to do the research.
Mm-hmm.
There haven't been a lot of panels about what the test pilots went through. So we've got, a panel of about 5 of the guinea pigs, and they're going to be sharing their experience.
Oh, awesome. That's so great to hear. I mean, you definitely need to have that in there, because there is a lot of stuff that you could find from the outside, the researcher's perspective, but firsthand experience, that's going to be great. It's cool. That's on Thursday, you said, or?
Is that on Thursday? That appears to be on Friday.
Friday.
Oh,
okay.
no, Friday.
Cool.
Then we have the DNO guys, the Decriminalized Nature Oakland guys.
Right, yeah. Had them on the show. Great. Awesome.
You had Larry and Carlos on the show?
Yep.
Fantastic. Yeah, so they're super great. And, their movement has just spread super wide. There's decriminalized nature movements happening all over the world now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Which is super great. We have Izzy from Maps. Do you know Izzy?
Oh yeah, had him on the show too. Yeah, love him.
Yeah. So Izzy's talking about with another lawyer who works at like the World Health Organization. They're going to be talking about intellectual property and sacred reciprocity.
Nice.
So, what does it mean that we have these companies coming in and trying to patent something that is our natural heritage as humans?
So important. Yeah. It's definitely such a tricky time, because, we're talking about the Pollen book and how a lot of people came into knowing about psychedelics. There's this sort of pushing and this mainstreaming that's going on, and the medical model and all this good stuff happening. But it's also like, well, this is these are some sacred tools here, and we need to sort of keep them grounded in ceremony and reciprocity, and so that's going to be real interesting. Wow, cool.
Yeah. So it's so good times all around.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. So what I guess people can go and check that out and get 10% off. That's going to be great. And it's the Psilocybin Summit. Is there a particular reason why? I mean, is psilocybin sort of your go-to? Is that your favorite psychedelic? Or?
Well, I mean, I don't want to play favorites. I'm not going to play favorites online. But do you know about the 920 Coalition?
Yeah.
So the 920 Coalition sort of wants the world to celebrate psilocybin all over the world.
Right, on September 20th.
And so I was thinking, I was planning on doing something for 920. The stage, I had this really nice coffee shop down the street. I mean, it's this old hippie bookstore, and it had a stage, and they would have events. Like Ram Dass used to teach there, and Alan Watts used to teach there, and stuff like that.
Awesome.
And so we had our psychedelic conversation series there. In 2018, we did about a half a dozen of them. Doing like every other month or so. And then my friend who was running the tea house, and he was such a great host, and after it, the people who were sticking around a little bit later, we'd all do like a kava ceremony together, and it was a sweet time. He lost his lease, and so there went my space, and I kind of liked that space. I was not necessarily ready for a new space, and I thought, well, we'll reach more people if we do it online anyway. And so then it just sort of built, and I thought maybe it would be one day, but there was too much content.
Mm-hmm.
So then it was 2 days, and it was too much content, and we're capping it at 4. Like 4 is plenty. It gives us a chance to give some stuff away for free, and really have a robust lineup. So that's how that happened.
Cool. No, that's awesome. And it works. I mean, looking at the website, it's beautiful. You got the speakers and the presenters and the panel. I mean, why not? It's if you can get it going
mm-hmm.
online. I mean, and then you get access to people who are all around the world too. So, I know there's people all around the world.
Do you want to host one?
Yeah, sure.
Like if you want to introduce, if you want to see who looks interesting to you, if you want to introduce them and then field their questions and stuff like that.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Cool. We should figure that out. It's time. I'm sorry. We might have Joe Moore from Psychedelics Today. He might host one. And,
oh, cool.
I'm hoping Aaron from the No Simple Road podcast.
Oh,
will host
yeah. I love
one.
Aaron. Yeah, cool.
Aaron's the sweetest guy in the world.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be really cool. For sure. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, let me know. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know.
Well,
we'll
talk about it when we're not, not in front of everybody.
Yeah.
We'll work out the details. We won't make them listen to that.
I could edit this part out too. So, yeah, no problem, man. No, it's awesome. It's been great. Kind of getting to know you and stuff, and we're got maybe 5 minutes left or so. But yeah, I kind of want to get into just some really kind of big questions. I like to sort of go there at the end of the show and just get into wild speculation territory, if that's cool. But I started getting into psychedelics and mindfulness practices in 2012, and it's been like a slow kind of unfolding journey for me. A lot of experimentation and researching and going different places and down to Peru and back and here and there and interviewing people like yourself on the show and learning as I go along. A lot of this show is me learning out loud, really, because there's a lot of stuff that I obviously don't know. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I don't know. I think I sense that I want to create something bigger. And I think that there's also people out there, they want to get involved. They want to do the work. And, maybe from your perspective, from your journey, what, maybe not advice, but just sharing a little bit of what helps, what works, what maybe to look at and go for if you're experimenting with psychedelics and you're also getting into mindfulness practices and just wanting to sort of, I guess, for lack of a better term, upgrade your consciousness. I mean, I don't want to create like a hierarchy of consciousness, but just kind of emerge into a new and whole, complete healing atmosphere, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, so what am I going to tell people to do? Well, it's like, create a little space to do practice in. We've been talking about meditation and you can reading books about meditation is kind of like trying to scratch an itch through your shoe.
Yeah.
It's like there's a big difference between taking 10 breaths and thinking about taking 10 breaths. Right? Like if we were to actually sit here and take 10 breaths, like I'll just do one. Right? It's going to change our consciousness a little bit, like deep breaths. It's going to change our consciousness. It's going to do a similar rewiring that mushrooms do, that LSD or what have you does, if we sit and meditate in a way that nourishes us. One of it's a little dated, but it's still fantastic. One of the books that I always suggest is Be Here Now. Mm-hmm. It's not new, but it's got the story of a guy who who developed a spiritual practice through taking psychedelics. Right. The middle of the book is beautiful and really good. It's almost set up like preparation, journey, integration. Right? So you kind of read a little story about a guy who starts getting high and starts doing yoga. And then in the middle of the book, there's all of this like very psychedelic words and pictures. Not sort of nouveau visionary art. It's not like your Alex Gray kind of stuff. It's kind of this old folksy hippie kind of drawings and very high text. And then in the back of the book is something called Cookbook for a Sacred Life. And it's basically kind of teaches you how to do mantra, right? How to create a nice setting for yourself, how to do a little bit of asana, how to meditate. And so it's just, if you think for yourself, it's like, do you want to have a sacred life? What would that mean? How would you create it? What is the adjective that you would put in there instead of sacred? Right? Like if you want to have a beautiful life or a courageous life or a heart-centered life or, a life full of X, Y, and Z, like what are the ingredients that you need to put in there to cook that up? And then just do that stuff. It's like all, neurobiology aside, I talk to a lot of people who are depressed because they make depressing choices. Mm-hmm. Right? They're not necessarily trained in better options, like we said before, but it's like, carve a little light out, like upgrade it at the speed at which you can. Just, consider the possibility that you can make better choices. Yeah. There's your mantra. Consider the possibility that you can make better choices. And then if you just submit that to your biocomputer, what's going to come back?
Yeah. Yeah, consider that possibility. And you might not know what the answer is immediately. But if you kind of meditate on that, I'm going to consider how I'm going to make better choices. Well, what does that look like? I don't know. Keep asking, keep thinking, keep that in your, frontal lobe, I guess, keep that present. And something will emerge, and I always, people ask me all the time, like, hey, I'm in, Kansas City and I like your show, but I don't know, anyone around here. And I'm like, okay, well, if you don't know anyone, start a group, start a meetup, start something, someone will show up, the others will emerge. And I think that that's something that a lot of people need because they maybe feel like if they're detaching from old stories or old habits or depressing choices, that can be isolating to the groups in which they had been existing in, right? Like when I made the conscious decision to stop going out with my friends and drinking 3 nights a week, well, I didn't really see those friends anymore. And I sort of realized I have less friends now, but I know there's new friends out there that are doing the things that I'm interested in or I'm curious about or I want to know. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's people out there that are thinking the same way. So when you meet someone, say you're 30 years old and you are like, hey, I'm looking for some new friends. It could be a little weird. It could be a little awkward because we've been socialized to say like, hey, these are the people and you stick with that story and you're running that script. But they're out there and you go out there. So that's great, Daniel. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's a huge one, considering those choices that you make because we all have choices and we make them every day. And
right.
It's pretty ordinary actually when you think about it. I think a lot of it's like, psychedelics can take you to some far out places and you can have some wonderful eye popping, cosmic connections of profundity and awe and majesty and wonder, but also like, it's kind of like just, being nice and being open. And like, if someone's asking you like how you're doing, just not saying like, hey, I'm good. How are you? Just been like, hey, actually I'm struggling with something right now. Do you have time?
Yeah. All of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It costs zero It costs $0 to make a Facebook group,
Right.
a Facebook page that says your city psychedelic society,
Yeah.
your city integration circle. It costs $100 a year to make a meetup group, right? It's a little bit, it's like, but considering what you spend on booze, it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like there are, there's the Bukowski poem. It's on the TAM Integration YouTube page. I read a Bukowski poem.
Bukowski, yeah.
There is, I don't love all of Bukowski,
Yeah.
but I like this poem. It's like, there are ways out beyond the watch. There is light. It may not be much light, but it beats the darkness.
Mm.
It's like the more you go, the more you do it, the more light there will be.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Bukowski he's someone I got into in college and was like, wow, this guy's great. And I like some of his stuff, but he's also a raging psychopath, alcoholic, misogynistic.
Like Aleister Crowley.
Yeah.
I like a little bit of his stuff.
Yeah. Take what speaks to you, what you feel is good, and move on. Right. That's the there's complexity, there's nuance, there's multifaceted, multidimensional aspects to everything that we see in the world, which leads me to sort of my next question is, being the person that you are, creating the things that you're creating, doing the work that you're doing, where do you see, like, what would you like to see unfold? That's the question that I want to ask, sort of the grand vision of where we're currently at in the world as people waking up and getting into these practices, people not, waking up and getting these practices, but that this emergence is happening and it is becoming available. You can attend a psilocybin summit from anywhere in the world. You can learn about this stuff. What would you like to see unfold, as we move forward in this space?
Oh boy. Visions for the future?
Yeah.
That's tough, man.
That's why I saved it to the end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a lot of ways, and especially with the summit just a few days away, I'm a 1 foot in front of the other kind of guy right now. But, I'm picturing, when you say that, I'm certainly picturing greenery. I hope that the work that we're doing actually fosters a greater sense of respect for nature and the natural earth, the natural world, and also a realization that we are actually a part of that, right? It's like those tribal people in the Amazon that says, it's like, we're not protecting the earth, we are the earth protecting itself.
Yes.
And so it's like, what does it take? As we both sit here in our boxes, speaking through wires. What does it take to create like a more kind of natural and like healing take on things in general, right? What does it mean to kind of be able to run more light through the body, to run more love and care through the body? That's what I would like to see. I would like to see an evolution of the species that doesn't necessarily just turn into uploading into a computer, right? If we're not there already, but turning into having an evolution where, the bodies are greater channels for love and light.
Yeah. Greater channels. I think that, I wonder what your thoughts are on this. Like, I think we are those channels when we're born, and it's sort of gets corrupted along the way. So then we have to go through this process of uncorrupting it, but really just kind of coming back, maybe a return to that sacred vessel that can hold love and light so much more than it can hold all the other crap that divides us and keeps things polarized and people, having screaming matches and things like that. Yeah, that's what I would like to see too. So I think that's a pretty worthy pursuit, right?
Cool. So I answered it right.
Yeah. Correct. You are good. Correct.
I was worried I answered it wrong.
No, it's great. It's great. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for being here. Any last words before we wrap? Anything more you want to include about the Psilocybin Summit or TAM integration?
Nah, just, if you are welcome. So I read every email. I answer most. If there's something, I'd love to hear what people are, what their challenges are, what their struggles are, what their deep insights are. I definitely encourage people to email me through TAM integration, whether you want to work with me or not. Like, you might not feel like you want to do, one-on-one work, and that's cool. But I still want to know what people are about. I'm like vastly interested in everybody's stories and everybody's processes and everybody's challenges. So it's like, just a real heartfelt invitation to share with me. And of course that does all remain confidential. None of it's not going to be published or, sold to Zuckerberg. It's just, because I want you to know that, at least I'm here to listen.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Please take Daniel up on that, guys. You know how much I value communication and connection and feedback, and everyone can always message me as well. And please, reach out and let's just, let's share our stories in truth and being vulnerable and open and real and raw. And yeah, Daniel, I always say this thing, like, with the fake news thing that was going on, I'm like, we can't report fake news from our human experience. We have to report sort of the true news of what's going on in our lives. And I'd like to consider myself a person that is welcoming of that, and it sounds like you are too. So yeah, like, if we're going to grow these communities, if we're going to create these educational resources and create these bonds and foster this world that has more people channeling love and light, let's start connecting, let's start communicating. So yeah, reach out to Daniel, check out the Psilocybin Summit. Like I said, the links are going to be down there, and TAM integration, and follow him on Instagram too, because that's how I found your Instagram page, and that's how we started talking, because you're always posting good content on there too. So he's everywhere.
I have a lot of fun with it. It's the lighter side. It's my sillier side.
It's necessary, right? Like, we have to have that, otherwise we're going to snap.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. You're the man. Really appreciate, the being able to drop in and connect with you.
Yeah, likewise. And we should do it again sometime. I enjoyed speaking with you. And I'm just going to say again to all the people listening out there, there's so much. There's a wealth of resources and information out there. So check out those links that I'm going to post, because Daniel's got a lot going on, but that I believe could really help a lot of people. So thanks again, Daniel. And stay tuned for that Psilocybin Summit coming up. Bye-bye, everybody.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Hope you guys like these podcasts and enjoy them. And if you do, please spread the podcast, share it. Tell a neighbor, tell a coworker, tell a friend, tell a cat, tell a mouse, tell a dog, tell an ant, tell a firefly, tell whoever you tell. Share it, spread it, like it, all that good stuff. If you really love the show, you want to go a step further, you really want to help us out, leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, and go to patreon.com, Patreon/Mike Brank, and patreon.com/Mike Brank, and you can donate as little as $1 a month, $2 a month, whatever you want. Help support the show that way as well. But remember, I love you guys no matter what you do. I just love that you tune in and you enjoy these podcasts. Message me. I like hearing feedback. Get in touch with me on Instagram, Mikeadelic Podcast, Mike Brank on Facebook as well. And thanks to our sponsors, SYNCHRO and Hemp Bombs. If you want a discount on ketogenic and plant-based nutrition products, go to SYNCHRO and type in the code Mikeadelic at checkout to get 20% off. And they have amazing ketogenic chocolate fudge called Keto Mana that I have all the time because it has like no sugar and carbs in it. So it's great. And it's delicious. And if you want CBD, go to hempbombs.com and get 15% off all your CBD needs, I guess. And just enter the code Mike15 at checkout. But thank you once again to everybody. Thanks to Danny Barnett and Galaxia for the music, the intro and the outro. I love you all. Peace.